phone, spilling into every conversation, sitting in your glass, maybe even coursing through your veins right now. But this word, alcohol, hides a shadow. Al-Ghul, Arabic for a body-eating spirit, a ghoul that chews you up from the inside out. This isn't just a drink. It's a drug pumped by $1 trillion machine that's wired you to crave it, to need it, to believe you're nothing without it. A cartel, ruthless as any drug lord, but worse. Cocaine kings get hunted.
Now, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera facing life behind bars.
Alcohol barons, they're toasted to, banking on your blind trust. And their poison, it doesn't discriminate. Even the elite, celebrities drowning in fame, money, power, fall into its jaws. But the tide's turning, people are waking up. Seeing how this beast is rotting our world, celebrities are stepping out, bearing their scars, their victories, breaking free from the addiction that nearly swallowed them whole.
There is life after that, and it's good. And you can get there.
They've built lives they never thought possible.
It's like a cheat code.
I feel much stronger. I'm blessed.
When I used to drink, I was happy in that moment. But now I'm happy all the time. I'm joyful all the time. And I don't need to drink.
Everything has been net positive, man. There are 0 negative effects from kicking that fucking poison out of your life.
And so can you. You can spit this drug out. Stare life in the face. Forge a future you'd never dare dream of. But it hangs on one razor-sharp choice. Yours. Right here. Right now.
I used to drink and take drugs to get away from the depression, because when I was drunk or high, then I wouldn't think about being depressed. I thought about being I'm a boxing champion, or I feel great.
Starts off as a fun little thing, and then it turns into an escape, and then all of a sudden you don't remember why you're out there doing stuff.
It was 1 shot, 2 shot. What does 4 feel like? What does 8 feel like? And all of a sudden I'm taking 12 shots of vodka, on a school night by myself.
I started to drink more and more and more, and it was really hard for me to accept that meant I was an alcoholic. I was like, I can just go back. I was fine before. I just need to take a break. I just need to slow down. I'm okay. You know what I mean? This isn't me. And I start to drink every day. And I come home from work and I start to drink, and I just sit there and drink till I'm passed out on the couch.
I wasn't the case that most people would think of, in the sense that my life was totally fine on paper. I had a job at a magazine everyone knew, I had a house, I had a car, that sort of thing. Internally, I was just a total mess, and it's kind of like the walls were caving in. And I tried to quit drinking a lot of times.
A number of my friends ended up alcoholic. And all the people that I was in high school with and in college with were extremely hard drinkers. And I drank quite a lot till I was 27. And then I found that I couldn't. Well, first of all, my life was taking a pretty professional turn. And second, I found that there was no bloody way I could write seriously and think seriously on an ongoing basis if I was hungover.
I came to that point when I realized that I couldn't create music without drinking in the studio. And that was my breaking point, where I was like, I have truly forgotten the source of my creativity, the source of who I am. And I'm looking for things outside of me to be myself. That's weird.
But people don't know, it wasn't like I started fighting and stopped drinking. I spent 4 years training and drinking. I became a professional Brazilian champion. I was a professional Brazilian kickboxing champion while drinking. So then I went back again in those 6 months, and I suffered some losses, even during the fights, and it affected me. And I said, man, if I want to succeed, if I want to feel good, to have a better quality of life, it's now or never. So I went and I said, I promised myself that I would stop. And it's been, 9 years now that I haven't drunk anything at all. But it's not out of fear. I'm not afraid of starting to drink again. It's just something I don't want. Sometimes I see people drinking and I look and think, wow, how can they?
If you want to take back control of your drinking in as little as 48 hours with a totally new method that doesn't rely on AA, willpower therapy, or anything like that, then I'm hosting a free video training right now that shows you how to do it. If you want to access it, then just click the link in the description. My name's Leon Sylvester, and for the past 7 years, I've not touched a drop of alcohol, and I have helped tens of thousands of people to do it as well. But it all started for them by watching the free video training that you can access by clicking the link down below. So if you're looking for a way to control your drinking with a new method that works quickly, and you don't want to sit around in meetings feeling sorry for yourself, then all you need to do is click the link down below to access that video training. Listen, at the end of the day, I can show you what to do, I can walk you through a process, but the only thing I can't do is click the link down below. So click it, and now let's get back into things.
At a young age, I realized that I had a very weak mind.
Yeah.
A very weak mind, and I want nothing to interfere with my own thought process.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, before they go on stage, they get a little bit tipsy, get a little buzz.
Yeah.
Maybe smoke a little something, do a little something.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that every single thing I feel is real.
Got it.
I want no masking.
Yeah.
I want nothing to mask my ability to feel fear, to overcome fear, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that people who drink and do these different things are trying to hide. Some people just do it. For me, I think of it as almost like a masking agent, so then your mind doesn't have to work as hard. And that means I'm losing.
Every time I had done something or said something that I regretted, it was when I was drinking. And I thought at one point, maybe I don't want to live a life where I'm continually or even sporadically wishing that I hadn't said or done something. No, and I'm very much unlikely to do that if I'm sober and clear-headed.
And I just think of the financial implications of drinking. It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
Because when I was on the SEAL teams, we spent a lot of money on alcohol. A lot of money on alcohol. If I would have saved that money, invested that money, bought something, a house, whatever, it would have been just a totally different scenario. How much time did I spend drinking and did we spend drinking when we could have been getting better at guitar? Could have been, learning how to do a skill that would be more valuable.
Bro, there's a world out here that is limitless, that things you can do, things you can learn, things you can, have the potential of embracing and succeeding in, on all these different levels, and it's all out there waiting. But that drinking, which it always came back down to the drinking. But drinking, you spend just like I said, you spend the whole day recovering, essentially.
To this day, I've never had a drink, and I have no longing for it. I have no interest in it. This was an idea that I had, where if we can teach young people not to take drugs, just not to take them. When I see friends of mine that are having difficulty with not having that drink at dinner, where it's literally almost impossible for them to stop, I say to myself, I can't even understand it. Why would that be difficult? The fact is, if we can teach young people and people generally not to start, it's really, really easy not to take them.
Sometimes if you don't watch the kind of habits that you're building, they become lifestyles. And not every lifestyle leads to roads of riches and benefits and incentives and a great life. Some roads lead to death, they lead to struggle, anxiety, depression, and all of the opposite things that somebody wants for their life.
If alcohol wasn't a thing and I've invented this drink that is gonna make you either really happy or really aggressive or really stupid, and we're gonna just sell it to the masses, people would be like, nah mate, keep your funky juice, we don't want that, that sounds terrible. And it's one of those things, because it is so socially acceptable, the addiction side of it, the bad sides of it, really do fly under the radar.
If we had to make a bad drug legal, the worst choice was alcohol. It's definitely the case.
No family in Britain which doesn't have someone who's been damaged by alcohol through addiction, through violence, traffic accidents, or being a victim because of someone else who was drunk and violent. Almost every family in Britain is affected, but we don't own up to it, right? We kind of push it under the carpet. We know there's a problem, but we don't talk about it.
I think most people don't realize that being drunk is actually a poison-induced disruption in the way that your neural circuits work.
50% of murders take place in an alcohol-fueled environment. Either the victim or the perpetrator or both is drunk. It's almost the sole cause of domestic abuse. It's almost the sole cause of so-called date rape. If you dig into criminal behavior deeply enough, well, hell, you don't have to dig much at all before you find alcohol. It's also the only drug we know that actually makes people more aggressive.
But alcohol has effects in lots of different areas of the brain, not just that sort of reward area
area, but it's also involved in a range of other neurotransmitters beyond dopamine. So, things like glutamate and GABA and other parts of the brain, the hippocampus, which is involved in memory, the cerebellum, which is the back part of your brain that's involved in motor coordination. And likewise, when someone is alcohol dependent, it is one of the most destructive drugs to various parts of your body and different organ systems.
So yeah, alcohol's bad news, and it can turn perfectly good people into quite the impulsive and dim-witted monsters. I mean, about 10% of people become addicted to it one way or another. Far more people than that abuse it. Yes, at least once in their life, yes.
People are fearful of other drugs, illegal drugs, because it helps deflect their attention away from the problems of alcohol. Politicians love to get hysterical about a new drug because it means they can do something about drugs and don't have to be held to account over their failure to deal with the problems of alcohol.
You might want to put down your drink to hear this. No amount of alcohol is safe.
Alcohol is a poison. You guys know that. It actively poisons you. And at high concentration poisons you a lot, and that fucks up your recovery at a basic biochemical level.
Even a little bit of alcohol causes damage in the brain. It disrupts something called white matter. White matter is the highway in your brain that transmit information and impulses. And even a little bit of alcohol has been shown to disrupt the white matter in your brain.
Alcohol is often used as a sleep aid, but alcohol is quite different in that regard. Alcohol is trying to essentially knock out your cortex.
Binge drinking definitely kills brain cells. It alters neural communication in such a way that it can change the structure and the function of the brain for a long term. Anytime you binge drink, you're gonna alter the brain, probably permanently. The plasticity can help it recover, but the more you do this, the less likely you are to be able to sort of overcome those perturbations.
There is no safe dose of alcohol because alcohol affects the development of synapses of the brain. People who drink at an early age heavily have been shown to have significantly smaller brains and reduced cognitive ability.
They can now see and not have to wait till autopsy studies. The gray matter, the actual neurons that are the structure of the brain shrink. You've probably heard, oh, you're killing brain cells. Well, you actually aren't.
Ethanol produces substantial damage to cells. And it does that because when you ingest ethanol, it's broken down into acetaldehyde. And if you thought ethanol was bad, acetaldehyde is particularly bad. Acetaldehyde is poison. It will kill cells. It damages and kills cells, and it is indiscriminate as to which cells it damages and kills.
There's no safe amount of alcohol to drink.
Alcohol is actually considered a class 1 carcinogen or cancer-causing agent, so that's the same category as benzene and tobacco smoke.
Well, alcohol was the 7th greatest risk factor for death and disability.
And if you look at the cost of alcohol across the world, it kills 2.8 million people every year. That's almost half the amount of people who die from tobacco.
And some studies estimate that a drink of alcohol has about the same cancer-causing potential as 1 to 2 cigarettes.
Alcohol is a really clever drug. Alcohol is a very promiscuous drug. It gets into the brain and it changes all the good neurotransmitters that you want to change. A bit of endorphins, a bit of serotonin, but gradually it sort of worms its way into you. So eventually it kind of takes over and you get to the situation like they just find themselves drinking. They don't even intend to drink. They're just suddenly there drinking. They don't know how they got there. They don't want to do it. They don't even enjoy it very much, but they can't stop. It becomes a compulsion.
Starts off as a fun little thing, and then it turns into an escape, and then all of a sudden you don't remember why you're out there doing stuff.
It was 1 shot, 2 shot. What does 4 feel like? What does 8 feel like? And all of a sudden I'm taking 12 shots of vodka, on a school night by myself.
I started to drink more and more and more, and it was really hard for me to accept that meant I was an alcoholic. I was like, I can just go back. I was fine before. I just need to take a break. I just need to slow down. I'm okay. This isn't me. And I started to drink every day. And I come home from work and I start to drink, and I just sit there and drink till I pass out on the couch.
I wasn't the case that most people would think of, in the sense that my life was totally fine on paper. I had a job at a magazine everyone knew, I had a house, I had a car, that sort of thing. Internally, I was just a total mess, and it's kind of like the walls were caving in. And I tried to quit drinking a lot of times.
In my case, the quickest way of forgetting about the fact that you were being watched was to get very drunk, and then as you get very drunk, you become aware that, people are watching more now because now I'm getting very drunk, so I should probably drink more to ignore that more.
That initially, alcohol
really saved me. It taught me how to be a social person. Like, I enjoyed going to parties and I enjoyed figuring out how to talk to people. And it was really this fuel that transformed me from this navel-gazing, insecure kid into somebody who felt like I could comport myself in a social situation as long as I was using alcohol. But very slowly over time, my life, the quality of my life just sort of declined and declined and declined.
I wasn't drinking because I had a crummy childhood or because I was suffering from any personal trauma. I was drinking because I was physically addicted to alcohol.
So I'd pick up the first drink, I'd like the feeling, I'd have another drink, I'd really like the feeling, and then it was past drink 2, don't remember.
It went slowly from being a work hard, play hard, have a drink, to 2 drinks, to 3 drinks, to then a habit, to then a daily habit, to then a 24/7 habit, to then a every weekend habit, getting lost in myself habit.
I knew that my drinking was causing problems in my life across the board. I mean, like, I had less money, it was eating into my bank account, it was messing with some of my relationships. I would never feel good. The 3 days after I would go out on a bender, right, I would just be like a mess.
It got so bad that I got to the weight of 340 pounds. I'm not even built to be that heavy.
It's very hard to have relationships when you're doing drugs and drinking. For me personally, anyway. And you become closed off, unreceptive, insensitive, all the dreadful things that you've heard every other pop singer ever say.
At the end, I was alone, alienated from my friends. My family didn't want anything to do with me until I sorted this out. Living in a shitty apartment with barely any furniture, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. And it was very dark for a very long period of time.
It was more just that I lost everything. I was practically homeless, unable to hold down like a waiting tables job. My friends all started to abandon me because I was a very angry and horrible human being to be around. And then finally, like, my girlfriend, who I never thought would leave me, like, left me. You just become an awful human being. Like, you're selfish.
And it was started off with this, then it became that. Then my wife started getting on me like, Jesus Christ, look at the size of it. I go, it's a home pour. 8 minutes left in the show, pour another one. So I poured the other one, and it was over, and I was walking down the stairs to our bedroom, and I didn't know if she was still up or not. I literally was hiding it on the side of my leg, trying to make sure the ice cube wasn't going to clink against the side of the glass.
And it just went from bad to worse. I hit the drink heavily on a daily basis. I was out all night partying with women of the night and not coming home, and I didn't care about boxing, I didn't care about living, I just wanted to die.
Because I'm negative and I'm dark and I want to do bad stuff. I want to hang out in this neighborhood alone. That's dangerous to hang out in this neighborhood alone up here, right? He wants to kill everything, he wants to kill me too.
Chris was gone 2012, I lost my father 2014. The 2 most important male figures in my life. I was trying everything to drown the pain and the frustration and the suffering of those losses by overworking, over-drinking, over-smoking weed and cigarettes.
Losing my family, that was the thing that scared me so much. That was the bottom I hit, that my family's gonna go away because of my behaviors that I brought home from the road. I got kicked out of the house by my wife. I was living on my own somewhere, and I did not want that. She did the right thing. She kicked my ass right the hell out of the house, That scared the shit out of me.
How long have you been sober now?
15 years. Friggin' saved my life, saved our family, and working through that stuff. So very grateful for my wife. She's the one that didn't ask for this shit. She walked through fire with me, and we walked out together stronger, way stronger than we ever would have been before.
Wow. And I'll tell you, I drank every single night of my life, and I never thought I could live without it.
Addiction is really consistently choosing a short-term reward at the expense of long-term growth. And yet I couldn't stop. I mean, that's the key, right? As you go, I know this is screwing me up. I know it. And then I tell myself, you know what? Maybe it'll be different this time. Like, I'm just going to have 1 or 2 drinks this time. And then you have 1 or 2 and you go, well, if 1 or 2 is this good, what would like 10 more be like? Right? And something shifts in your head.
You see a movie where someone's drinking red wine or whatever, then you start physically craving. Like, now you can't get it off your mind and you're uncomfortable in your skin. So you say to yourself, well, I've been sober for 2 months. I don't have a problem. And you have a drink. That's what this little trickster in your brain tells you. You're fine. You've been sober for 2 months. You don't have an alcohol problem. Have 1. And then that 1 turns into you coming home with a bottle 2 nights later, and that comes into you opening up your wine cellar again. That's what happened to me. and now drinking heavier than you did before. When you're in it, there's no way you can look outside yourself and say, oh, that's the hallmark of alcoholism. You know, I can look back now and say, wow, okay, there were clear signs, but of course you don't see them yourself.
The addiction elevator is always going down. It only moves in one direction. The best case scenario is that person's life stays the same, but in almost every case, it continues to decline.
Like there were times I was like, man, I could never be a sober person because I'm afraid of, I can't communicate with women, or I'm afraid to, stand around in a circle with tough guys without having like a beer in my hand, or like all these little crutches, I
was what they call a high functioning alcoholic. Yes. I hid it really well. And then I got to the point where no one would know. And then I was, walking around on all fours barking.
Before I knew it, I was digging myself a hole, and everywhere I looked, it was so dark, and I lost myself. I spiraled into a sense of no self-worth. I hit rock bottom, to the point where I almost lost my job, to the point where some people had to have very tough conversations with me. Some friends had to deal with my drama, and they say hurting people hurt people. I was hurting inside, and I was hurting others and didn't even know it.
So why quit drinking? So I don't end up in hell. Hey, there's a reason to stop. And then if you make that hell real, it's like, here's all the details of my personal hell. Yes, let's avoid that.
Right.
So then you have something to run the hell away from.
Right, so now you have something towards and something to run away from.
There is a lot of pressure on young people, not to drink necessarily, but to find happiness through going out and getting mashed. But if it doesn't work for you, and if you keep waking up going, I don't seem to be having nearly as good time as most of my friends, then think about it. It doesn't have to be something you do, is all I'd say to people.
If you don't drink, you don't miss it. I mean, I don't even think about alcohol or
right. It's not a part of your world.
I don't think about cigarettes. Yeah. I don't think about any of that. If you don't take drugs or if you don't have alcohol, it's real easy not to drink it.
I think when I was creating this project, I was always drunk, always drinking, always partying, and I couldn't recognize myself at all because I wasn't really myself. I was intoxicated, whether I'm smoking, I'm drinking, or whatever, and I wasn't liking the person that was reflecting back at me. And I was like, okay, I think it's time to sober up, and I need to just get away from people and figure out who am I right now. Because I feel like I was carrying this version of myself that I had been since I was 20, 21, you know what I mean? And it was no longer serving who I was to become. And when it was no longer serving me, I was like, okay, let's make a change. And I felt heavily inspired, and I made the album, Bada Bing Bada Boom.
And we've been brainwashed by alcohol industries to believe that quitting is really hard. It's part of their propaganda. They're the ones pushing that message, which seems like, why would they tell people it's hard? But they're doing that because if it's hard, you won't quit.
Well, I don't want to get too right-wing about the whole thing, but I think ultimately it's somewhat of a moral dilemma, even though a lot of programs and approaches say, no, don't say that. It's just, I'm certain there's a spiritual aspect to it, but I think largely it's kind of like you have a reasonable amount of control about what you do, what you put in your mouth with your hands, type stuff. I think ultimately you just have to, and I think getting a little older helps too. Past a certain point, you have to stand up inside yourself and change. Everybody does with any issue. Ultimately, anything else is just a really, new age excuse, if you ask me.
If you and I were to sit here and you were to start punching me at random, sucker punching me, would I stand here and let you beat the piss out of me? I would hope not, right? But in life, we let life beat the piss out of us. And we make our circumstances even worse by when a negative event happens, we get depressed, or we feel pity for ourselves, or we turn to quick fixes like drugs, alcohol, and it makes our situation worse. So when you unpack the layer and you give that tough love of saying, you know what, you need to fucking change. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and stop being a victim, stop blaming other people, and take ownership for yourself and stop waiting for other people to fix your life.
You need to get out there and have something to do.
Yeah.
And something worth waking up for. And that's the substitute for the addiction.
The thing I ask people is this: is alcohol adversely affecting any part of your life? That can mean anything from your relationships to working out in the morning. Is it adversely affecting any part of your life? If the answer is yes, then you need to address it.
You can't get sober for somebody else. I'm getting sober for my spouse or my kids, or, I'm getting sober because if I don't, my boss is going to fire me.
None of that shit works. I had to and wanted to get sober because I said, I deserve more. I deserve more out of this life. I have to try it a different way. And I have to be willing to just commit to it.
So what really helped me was when my cellmate looked me in the face and he said, Doug, you can either be a man or you can be a bitch. And I really believe, Tom, that we're not defined by our circumstances, we're defined by the choices we make in response to our circumstances. You can, man up and do what you need to do to get better, or you can be a bitch, go cry in the corner, blame everybody for your problems, say, woe is me. And where I came from, where I grew up, being called a bitch isn't cool. And I was like, you know what? I'll take the opportunity of being a man.
My son is talking to me and he tells me, I ain't never been this scared, Dad, but I'm scared you're gonna die. I lost Grandpa already. I can't lose you too. Can you please stop drinking? Can you please stop smoking? Can you please get back to the daddy that I know you to be? All that Busta Rhymes shit was cool up until this moment.
And if you don't do this, you're probably going to die early, by the way. I realized I had to just rip off the Band-Aid and do the hard thing. And once I went through that process, my life improved across the board.
I had to really, really believe in myself, even though I internally shouldn't have, right? The odds were stacked against me, but I had to keep believing if I knew that if I could just become a better version of myself each and every day, that I had faith that things would get better.
We're either forced to change or we choose to change. Every day you have a choice. Life is a reflection of the daily choices that we make in our lives. You choose the books, you choose the personal development, you choose the leadership, you choose to create something, to work on something, to be an entrepreneur holding himself or herself to higher standards, to go above and beyond and to be able to experience the delayed gratification. That's one route. That's one choice every day. Or is it the 1 drink, 2 drinks, 3 drinks, selfish, my goals, my dreams, my desires, but they're unclear. So really all it is filling a void, filling a gap in the heart and escaping into something that maybe does not lead to any of those things.
So in order to change something, to arrive at a new vision of your future, if you wanted to arrive at a new goal or new vision of your future, you'd have to change something about yourself in order to get there. And you'd have to change the way you think, the way you act, and the way you feel. Most people then, they have that vision of the future, but they give up on that vision because in order for them to arrive at that vision, they have to do something. They have to think differently, they have to act differently, they have to feel differently. And it's so much easier to make the same choice every single day. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, you're going to feel uncomfortable because you're stepping from the known into the unknown. So some people would rather cling to their self-pity than take a chance and possibility. They'd rather tell the story of their past instead of telling the story of their future. They'd rather believe in their past instead of believe in their future.
There was something that we called the higher taste. And it was saying you can never give up a lower taste unless you had a higher taste.
Sure.
And so there has to be a switch. There has to be a replacement.
Has to be a replacement, 100%.
And so the fact that you found alternatives, I think that's half the battle.
Sure.
Because most of us are trying to take something out of our lives and then you're just trying to fill it.
Yeah.
And then you have to go back to what you had before because you're not finding a replacement.
And once I got my health, and once I got my mind and I got my spirit right, and I started to be proud of me, when I looked at me and my kids was looking at me and they would say shit that you could only hear once you did what you needed to do and put in the work you needed to put in so that it shows.
Go right through it. Like right through it. Feel it, be in it, don't avoid it, go completely in it, feel everything, and then go right through it and get out the other end. Many of these things you don't have a choice. You know, it's that, what's that expression? It's how well you walk through the fire, but you walk through it.
If you're honest with yourself and you have some degree of self-awareness, understand what you care about, I think choices become a lot clearer. Like there's way, way more clarity about how to live your life in the micro, which is really what we're talking about. These just many choices throughout the day. Does it support who you want to be in the world or does it not? And there's very little gray actually. And the gray are excuses in my view. And we can rationalize and make stuff up all day long, right? To make ourselves feel better. But when you can step back from all of that and look at it really, taking yourself kind of out of the equation and look at it from a very objective standpoint, I think a choice like alcohol becomes very clear.
Open the mind, meaning to stop, to realize whenever you are in a way limiting your views, for example, limiting your own perspective. And by regularly practicing, every day we take care that we are opening and stay with the open mind. This openness after time is something that we are then starting to incorporate into our being, into our daily life. And this is what opens then the doors again. The more open you become, the more you will see once again the possibilities that are out there. And if you by yourself cannot create that light, then we have to somehow try that the circumstances on the outside help you, support you a little bit along this way. And the same goes for the question, if somebody finds himself in that place of darkness, either you find a way that you can find some light in there and then make it shine brighter from day to day.
Here's what you have to do. You have to ask for help. I've been there. And it's so hard. But maybe I can just be a light in the darkness for you to know that there is hope. It can be done. And life is so good afterwards once you get yourself back.
I remember when I got like 90 days sober, I was just like, holy shit, man. Like, it was like the first time I'd ever done something like for myself, you know?
Yeah.
And it just, man, it felt unprecedented.
Yeah.
But I was lucky, you know, I got sober at 29 years old. And, you know, I've been sober for 19 years. Been very lucky.
Good for you.
Know?
Unbelievable.
Better.
Oh, are you kidding? I would never be sitting here with you. No way, no chance.
Because?
Because I wouldn't have been able to have access to myself or other people, or even been able to take in other people if I hadn't changed my life. No way. And I never would have been able to have relationships that I do. I never would have been able to take care of my father the way I did when he was sick. So many things.
You can only change your life if you want to change it. And I got back home, I didn't say anything to the wife. I just went straight upstairs into a dark room. And I was sat there, and I got on my knees, and I was praying and begging God to help me. After praying for about 10 minutes, I got up, and I felt the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. And for the first time in years, I knew I was going to make a comeback.
I went through heavy, darker times, and I survived them. I didn't die young, so I'm very lucky. There are other artists and people that didn't survive certain things.
And I suppose the birth of my first son, James, was a moment in my life where I got to realize fully that I wasn't just living for myself anymore.
Right.
Which none of us ever really are, majoritively, but I was really, I had this little baby who didn't need a best friend, who needed a dad, so that was a big turning point for me. He was about 2 when I got sober. Yeah, James was about 2.
I'm almost 27 years sober. Everything I have today over, well, really the last 20 years or so has been really through sobriety.
It's like a cheat code. Now I'm like talking to women or like hanging out, or I'm like talking to my boss at comedy clubs or just other people, and I'm like, dude, I got the edge on everybody, because they're all like blurry, they all smoke pot from morning to night, they're all like drinking at night, they're all pilled up, microdosing this, blah blah blah, and I'm like limitless, you know, like I'm like I have the edge on everyone.
It's true.
It's like a cheat code.
You could do anything at any time.
It's wild. You know what's cool is like loving your life. Like what's cool is like being nice to people. What's cool is like having interests and enjoying them. What is cool about sitting around like in sweats all day and bitching about life